Hey, quick lecture. Actually, won't take long at all, but it's something that I want to introduce you to. The two aspects that probably show up more frequently in psychology than anything else. And in our case, we're dealing with adolescents, um, as in ENTS, and they're not protected or free or whatever terminology you want to use from these two things. And what are the two things? Quit beating around the bush. Anxiety and depression. Very unfortunate things. And I just want to give you a brief description. I'm not going to go into detail about the occurrences specifically related to adolescents because you can read about it, and we're going to you can discuss it if you're online. You can discuss it in your forum, weekly forum, and I wish you would, but choose whatever you want to choose out of the readings for that week. And in class, we're gonna do an exercise with this, very simple exercise, pretty eye-opening thing. Um, so the I interrupted my thoughts, and I apologize. The incidence of anxiety, the incidence of depression, again, and this may not seem very well with what I was just saying a while ago, but I had a thought that went through my mind that changed the way I wanted to approach this. Um, Causes, etc. You can read about it. I just want you to get a handle on what we're dealing with here, and it's unfortunately not uncommon. So let me get right to the point. Anxiety, what is it? Very simple. Overwhelming fear, overwhelming apprehension. When we use the term overwhelming in psychology and counseling, psychotherapy and counseling, we're not talking about something that's, oh my gosh, and leave it at that. We're talking about something powerful enough to activate the autonomic nervous system. What system is that? The autonomic nervous system has two subsystems, if you want to call them that, parasympathetic and sympathetic. And what does it do? It prepares you to defend yourself or escape danger. And you've heard it probably. The fight or flight used to be called the fight or flight syndrome. I think it's more commonly called the fight or flight reaction now. Doesn't matter. What it is your mental and physical preparedness to survive. So it involves, I'll call it adrenaline because you probably are familiar with that. Technically, it's norepinephrine, epinephrine, cortisol, dopamine, other things going on there. These are fuels to allow you to be able to run, to escape, or to fight your way out of a situation. So when you suffer an anxiety attack, and we're not talking about commonplace anxiety, we're talking about the disorder, then it's so powerful that it actually activates your autonomic nervous system. And there's some disruptive things to understate it that take place. You feel unable to cope, excuse me, unable to cope with things. You feel threatened. You feel insecure. And there's no relief from this. To be diagnosed with this, you can read how that occurs in your readings for the week. Has to occur over a certain period of time. And then I'm going to tell you some symptoms, and one is actually pretty horrendous. So when we deal with anxiety, we divide it into 4 different types. I'm only going to cover 2 of these because the other 2 are pretty devastating, can be as well, but I really don't want to spend time on them. I will name them: phobias and OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. But I want to talk to you briefly about two of the four. Generalized anxiety. This is probably I suppose you could, if you wanted to classify, it would be the worst because of the length of time. So, what are the symptoms of this? Well, first of all, there's this nasty little deal: no identifiable source. There's nothing that sets this off that you can put your finger on. So, I enter into this attack of anxiety. It comes out of left field. I may be sitting in a classroom, or I may be sitting in church, or it could be doing anything. And boom, I have this onset of anxiety. It's persistent. And that's going to, in a moment, you're going to see just how important that is. You already know that there's an ANS activation, autonomic nervous system activation, muscle tension, heart palpitations, insomnia, headache, dizziness, incapable of coping with day-to-day living. Now, before I get to the headline, the headache, etc., muscle tension can bring that on. You can have aches and pains anywhere because you're tensed. And then here's the biggie. I said persistent, and that's going to factor in. Here's where it factors in. This attack will last sometimes up to 6 months. As a matter of fact, to be diagnosed with this, in some cases, you have to have one of these that lasts 6 months. Can you imagine going through your everyday, trying to go through everyday activities under these circumstances? Very, very nasty little disorder. That's generalized anxiety. The other kind you're probably more familiar with is panic disorder. Panic disorder differs in a lot of ways. Number one, and major, well, I shouldn't say it's the only major. There are two majors. Number one is it's sudden, but it's brief. It can last anywhere from a couple of minutes to a couple of hours. Still not 6 months. It involves an intense apprehension from a known source. So in some cases, you can avoid those sources. So let's say traffic causes you to have a panic disorder. Well, maybe you can make arrangements to ride the train. That makes sense. I mean, there are things that you can do in some cases to avoid the source of what sets off your panic. They have a lot of the same symptoms as general anxiety disorder, which is the one I just finished describing to you. But it includes difficulty breathing. It includes trembling / shaking. And it may require emergency treatment. People sometimes think they're choking to death when they have a panic attack. Again, sudden but brief. If you've ever had a panic attack in your life, you don't have this disorder. This has to be recurring. So if you've had one in the past, or if you have one in the future, and that's the only one you ever have, hey, you're good to go. You just had an experience that you probably don't want to ever have again. So those are the two big ones: panic disorder and generalized anxiety disorder. Panic disorder in a brief way, and anxiety disorder, generalized anxiety disorder that lasts at least 6 months. Can't imagine. It's not a new hypothesis anymore. It's been around a little while that speaks to why. Why would some people have this and others not? And the hypothesis is that for some people, part of adaptation didn't work in their biologically in their brain. Their brain is still living back in a time where this was a very, very important aspect of survival. And now in modern times, those kind of situations don't exist anymore for the most part. But yet your brain reads things differently and then reacts with generalized anxiety or with panic disorder. Panic disorder can lead to a phobia known as agoraphobia, but you can read about that. So there you have it. Short little deal, 10, 11 minutes long. Introduce you to anxiety and panic disorder. Wouldn't surprise me if someone in the class has dealt with that. Maybe not you having this, but someone you know, because it's fairly common. Okay, there you have it. Read the details in your textbook. It explains quite a bit more about this. Cover some of what I have, and then it'll give you a lot more insight. All right, take care.